Met my wife 15 years ago. Stunner, but a lifelong veggie. And all this time I've been pretending to be one too. On business trips, I eat my body weight in sausages and steaks.
Staying at a Best Western supports a local independent business. So, what's that you've done? Booking Good makes up for it.
Welcome back to Box 2 and myself, Jamie Jones-Buchanan, in partnership with Best Western Hotels GB. I'd like you to know that you can get the very best and cheapest deals by booking online with them at bestwestern.co.uk in the knowledge that you're supporting local independent hotels. Now we've got a really special guest on Box 2 this time round. We've had some real superstars, haven't we? Ali Lauer-TT, Danny Bedarius. This time we've got Leeds Rhinos head coach Brad Arthur. Brad, great to have you on. Been looking forward to this for a number of weeks now. We bumped into each other this morning. It was about 5:55 a.m. I'm taking my oldest lad down to the training academy there. He's in the academy. They've got a bit of a wrestle session, a little bit of a blowout this morning. Bumps into Brad Arthur coming out. He's full of sweat. He's got his headphones on. You've been into the routine, and that's where I wanted to start, really. Your time over in Leeds has been quite short, but I know people who think about high performance have great habits and routines, and it's really important to adopt that. So have you found those opening few weeks in adopting some of those, obviously, health benefits that's important to you?
Yeah, well, it's really important to me that, like I wake up at a certain time every morning. I set an alarm, but I probably don't need it.
Yep.
And even, when I had a few weeks off there, I was still in the habit of getting up and I was just pacing the house because I had nowhere to go. But, I could try and get to work around that 4:45, 4:30, 4:45, somewhere like that. And I've just got my morning routine where I've got to get some training into me. I've got to try and get some physical exertion and then try and focus and concentrate when I'm under fatigue a little bit. And, and especially on a game day, I'll put myself through that process and maybe get in the sauna where I've got to focus mentally and just think about what's coming for the day ahead, messages I'm going to give to the players, training sessions, questions that they might ask me, how I'm going to respond to them. And I can't actually physically go out in the field and do what they do, but, if I can put myself close to it, and, it makes me appreciate more of what I've got coming in the day and also appreciate the players more.
I've been fascinated, obviously, with 12,000 miles apart. We've not walked the same path. I would say I do almost exactly the same thing. I don't wake up as early as you, by the way. I'm at 4 a.m. I'm about 5:15, get some reading in, do my run. And as the day goes on, if I haven't done it for whatever reason, I get more and more agitated. When was it that you sort of understood that was part of your process?
Well, sort of been head coach for coming into, this is my 11th season. Yeah. And I reckon even when I first was an assistant coach and I went down to Melbourne Storm, I was really fortunate of coming through that system, and I just seen how they operated, and they did every bit of detail was there. They didn't miss any of it. And it started with Craig was always the first one in there training, and the coach's assistants at the time were Michael Maguire and Steve Kearney, and they'd be in there training, and I just fell into the habit, and I hadn't not long been sort of finished captain coach, and so I didn't mind training, and that was one of my strengths, was to work hard. So I got into that good habit nice and early, and it's just sort of been a trait of mine. And then, as I sort of grew into the role of coaching, got more comfortable with it, used to drag my assistants into it, and, since I've left Para now, there's a bit of a joke that my assistant there doesn't train anymore because I've left. But it was just a good habit to get into and start my day. And I'm exactly the same. If I don't do something early in the day, I don't think I focus and I'm concentrating. I do get agitated. And, the players can actually tell as well. They know that, I get in there and train and I need to do that and to get myself sorted and make sure I'm clear thinking for the rest of the day.
I love it, that metaphor almost of work ethic, getting out of your comfort zone. I'd use that word there, comfort. Think in life when things uncomfortable present themselves, knowing what we've done physically can sometimes help that. And I wondered as well, you came over here, I've loved how honest and clear you've been from day one. I've got a mandate, I'm living 6 inches in front of my face here, I'm dealing with what's right here, right now. Got to change a few behaviours, hopefully that'll lead into some performance and results. Don't want to get too much into that today because I'd love to hear more about yourself, but are there any other sort of gems that you maybe didn't understand or expect when you come over here that you've enjoyed in the short term?
Well, look, I've got to start with the players and the staff have been excellent. Like then the club, have made my transition really smooth, and everyone's, at the moment, and it's all right when it's new, and so the challenge is for everyone to keep wanting to do this in 3 and 4 weeks' time, but everyone's buying into a little bit of, and not trying to change everything, because it's a very good club and a very good squad, and they've got a lot of good traits. It's just some real clarity, and which then gives me the opportunity to hold people accountable. If there's no clear messaging or standards or expectations, it's very hard to then look people in the eye and be honest with them and hold them accountable. So, like I said, it's been very pleasing, that part of it. The bits and pieces that I'm still adjusting to are, if I can talk about refereeing, the game a little bit. Sure. I'm just not used to, like the interference in the ruck, but like I'm not complaining about it. It's what it is, and I've got to learn, and that's a good thing for me, is I've got to learn to adapt my coaching around that and not complain about it and just get on with it. So I think that's been a bit different. And then the other one, like I was nice and brave and had a bit of bravado coming over here, and and I said to my family I'd be fine, but like I've missed not having them guys around. Yeah. And struggled at times with that. I thought I'd be all right, but it's got to me a couple of times.
And that's important as well, obviously. But the gems that I've appreciated looking back with gratitude is the people that I've worked with, the relationships that I've forged, the development over time. I know you've obviously been at 11 years at Parramatta. You must have seen the real growth in potential of players who might be rough diamonds. You create an environment in which they can thrive, and over time, that for me must feed into the satisfaction and the reason why you get out of bed. I've been fascinated recently with this difference between vocation and profession. Vocation being the holistic you or us, that we're passionate about, a gift that we want to give. But then we sometimes turn that into a profession ideally. If you love what you do, you'll never do a day's work in your life. But sometimes the two can be intertwined, because, as we know, sport is a results-based industry. But that's not always what drives us. And I wondered, in the short time, some of the boys that you maybe didn't know that you've come over, have you enjoyed working with some of the younger end developing players? Is there anybody who stood out as being somebody who's got a lot of potential inside them? Yeah,
and before I get to that part of it, I reckon it's probably important discussing, when I first started coaching, I thought that's just what it was, coaching, and it was the X's and the O's, and it was all about the detail of the football. And I don't reckon and I've still got lots to learn as a coach, and I'll still hopefully get better as I go, but I don't think I really started to get close to hitting my straps until I realised the relationship part of it. Yeah. And, how important it is to, you got to get the balance right on how close you get to the players, but they're human. They've all got, footy is part of their life. It's not the life. And, so once I got the balance right with that and become a bit more personal, I reckon I was able to get more out of the players and hold them more accountable and be more honest with them, because they were able to take it with love, because I was coming from the right place, so I could be really firm and really hard on guys, but they could cop it. And so I reckon that part of it is really important. So, like going into here where I am now, it's hard because we've only got 9 weeks, and so I need to drive a lot of standards, and I need to sometimes hit them with the big stick, but I also got them to be able to accept it. I've got to know a bit more about them, and try and get a little bit deeper with them. And so I've been trying to get the balance right with that, and try and know a bit more about their life outside of footy as well with a lot of them, and in particular the ones that are going to be the main influences in the group. And, there's a couple already there, the Pommy lads that I really like working with and coaching. It's Ash Hanley and Harry Newman. Both play on that. Wingers, for a winger, he's so tough, and his leadership is very good. And he's a real man of few words, but when he talks, I just watch him and the aura he holds around the group and the way they listen to him. He's got really good potential leadership qualities, I reckon, and he actions it all. The respect that the players have got, and I really like working with him, and I feel like he's a very good player. Yeah, he's a very good player, and he's got very good leadership qualities, and I think he's the perfect person to have alongside Harry, who, bit of a larrikin, you know, just from what I've seen, you know, and I think he gets pretty comfortable. And I had a bit of a conversation with him today. You've had 2 good games, but can you play 3? Or are you getting comfortable already? And, you know, he's getting comfortable around me, which is good, but he's also someone I feel like I could have my foot on his throat a little bit and, you know, keep him underwater a bit at times just to see if he can get up and take a breath and go again.
And my mind is going off like fireworks at the minute with the neurons firing at everything that he's saying. Just if I reflect on what I think I've heard there, thinking about destination, understanding intent, you know, no wind is advantageous unless you know what port you're sailing to. And you're right, you know, in my experience, the triumph and disaster, the adversity can be dealt with. You know, resilience is built when you know where you're going and you're heading towards that. There's not a lot that you cannot deal with. You know, when you're talking about putting yourself through a refiner's fire. And listen, it's really encouraging with Ash Hanley, listening to that leadership. He's been around a long time and he's been hungry. I know he's been hungry.
Yeah, he wants to win.
He wants to win. He's a winner all day. And Harry Newman is a character, isn't it? He's like one of those fireworks that goes off. He's like a display firework, like a Category 9 firework that's
but
just falling over in your front garden and everybody's like, whoa, yeah. But you need him.
You need those characters in your group.
And you drive, you channel, if you channel energy, it's a wonderful display. So in your mind's eye and experience, what are the really quick wins? And by that, I don't mean shortcut, but what are the quick wins in grabbing somebody like Harry and others, by the way, we're not singling him out, to channel them, to understand where the potential is and how they might get to the destination if they can just channel it a little bit better?
Yeah, well, I think it's always starting with the positives of what they're really good at, like in life a lot, and even as a coach, and then when you're coaching and you're trying to get your team to get better, because everything you do, you want to get better. And sometimes you skip over what they're really good at, and then you start focusing on, we've got to be better at this, we've got to be better at that, we've got to be better at that, and then all of a sudden you're chasing too many of these things you've got to be better at, and you forget what you're really good at, which is why you're there in the first place, or why you're a good team, or why you're a good club.
Yep.
And so with Harry, like just focusing around all his strengths, him and Ash, all like what they're really good at, and then just challenge them to do it over and over and over, and when they can do that all the time, under fatigue, under pressure, when no one's watching them, when someone is watching them, that's when we can worry about just adding little bits and pieces to the game of getting better. But, so that's where I've sort of hopefully getting a few wins with him and like just getting him focused on that, right, you're doing that good, just keep doing it and making him believe that when he does it, he's hard to handle and he's one of the best centres in the comp and he's good for our team. And if he doesn't do that, well, he's letting the team down.
Sure.
Yeah, no, and he's letting himself down. So, but he's been really receptive, and but like I said, it's nice when it's new and it's fresh. The challenge is going to be in 3 and 4 and 5 weeks' time, for these guys and for me is that they want to continue to learn, they want to continue to nail down their strengths, but then also just find a couple of little gradual improves in their performances.
And it is gradual as well, isn't it? Because when you get a new mindset, that might be around effort areas and investing energy. Let's say, for argument's sake, a kick chase. Investing that energy comes about through conditioning as well over time. Yeah. So you might decide that this is a great way to play, but actually, in a week, you can't change that physical conditioning. So that takes time to get to the place where ultimately St Helens have been for the last 5 or 6 years just by the virtue of the fact that they play at an higher intensity than anybody else. But that's what we've got to look at, investment over time, isn't it?
I agree, and I think if you look at the first game, I think we were really good for a long period, but then when we started to get tired, we couldn't continue to do what they wanted to do. They knew what they had to do, and then on the weekend, we managed the game just a fractionally better to reserve our energy, and we're able to do it for longer again. But still, it's going to take time, and we're not calling for patience with it or anything, but I don't know if in 8 weeks we're still going to be able to do it for 80 minutes. Yeah. But like you said, those sides that are at the top, they've been doing it for a long, long time. And the more you do it, and it's all right, you can't click your fingers and just change how you train all of a sudden and go from there to there with your, wherever it needs to be or the style of footy you want to play fitness-wise. Yeah. It's just going to be gradual. But the boys did say that they felt better this time round. Like that was one thing a lot of them said after the first game is that they felt tired. Like playing that, it was mentally fatiguing and it was physically consuming of their bodies. Yep. But they felt like they adjusted a bit better this week. So hopefully we'll continue to adjust to it. But if if we make errors or you put yourselves under pressure, well, that's going to go work against us too, isn't it?
Yeah, manifesting a new doctrine, difficult. And the thing though that stood out for me, I've been a fan, as you know, since I was 9 years old, was it was evident from that OKR game, your first full game in charge, and I think the fans could feel it. The song, the energy around the place, and even though the result didn't come, everybody could tell, there's a difference there. There's an intent around their actions. Just wanted to delve maybe into the past, into some of your journey, what's become important to you. I'd ask first though, certainly at the latter end of life, you mentioned Melbourne there, Bellamy. Who's been the most inspirational, influential person on your sort of coaching pedagogy, for want of a better word, the way that you teach your leadership style?
Oh, look, I've had a lot of people, help and along the way, so it'd be very hard to single out one. And I always credit Melbourne Storm for giving me the opportunity and setting me in my own pathways on how I wanted to coach and what I wanted it to look like around detail and hard work, the work ethic part of it. But, Michelle, my wife, has been really good for me because she doesn't know a lot about rugby league. I remember, she watched me play for 10 years and then one day decided to ask me, do I have to actually kick the ball over the crossbar when I was kicking goals, because she was an AFL, not just between the posts, had to go over the crossbar. So it just shows you how much she knew about rugby league, but I can actually talk to her about things that happen at work, and because she doesn't have that level of expertise around the game, she puts her spin on it, or what the other person might be thinking, how they heard me say it, or because you can come home and as you're doing your own, bloody hell, and you have a bit of a whinge about this and that, and that's where she's been really good to give me another perspective and stop me and think, well, have you thought about it from their point of view, or have you thought about it from this, where it's got no context to do with the actual rugby league, but it's the delivery of the message, or how it's, or how it was said, or how it was interpreted. Yeah. So I think, and she probably doesn't know it. Yeah, right. But she's been a big influence.
The more abstract, the better. You'll probably get to know over time, I think, in pictures, and that's how I see. So the way that other people see the world, again, is a fascinating thing for me. My wife, exactly the same, and I want to delve into, for me, the fact that you've been Parramatta related for a lot of years. You've obviously got two boys that are playing rugby league, playing NRL. I've got four boys as well. There's a lot of similarities when you're talking about family. Your wife, that's my world. Before we get there though, I just wanted to reflect back on the community game. I used to play at Stanley when I was a kid. I only had one community club, and then I was here for the rest of my life then after signing as a 15-year-old. But take me right back to Seven Hills community and growing up playing rugby league in Australia, and certainly your development as a player then into coaching. Was living out west. I wasn't actually in the Parramatta district. I was at Quakers Hill, living there. My mum was Quakers Hill Riverstone. I was playing a bit of soccer, and my mum got me involved in rugby league and went to Seven Hills and just sort of started there in a struggling sort of team, and by the end of it, by the time I started playing a bit of junior reps at Parramatta, we had a really good team where a lot of kids were playing for rep footy. We become very tight, and it was one of those, we just went to that one club and that's it. Didn't matter how bad we were going. We just worked on trying to make the team better and get new, dads were coaching and getting new players into the group. And so that just sort of grew from there. And everything I've always done has always been Parramatta. I've played, local footy, then played a bit of rep footy, junior reps and 21s and reserve grade. And I still remember I got a photo of when I was a kid. I went down there with Mick Cronin, and then I had a photo with him on the picket fence, and then I ended up he ended up was the head coach when I was playing there under 21s and a bit of reserve grade. And he had blokes, legends like Bob O'Reilly, Ron Hilditch, John Colt, they're all Parramatta through and through. So got a fair bit of that history. And then I spent a couple of years at Penrith and enjoyed that. And Royce Simmons was the one who sort of pushed me into the coaching. He said, look, you can stay here and continue to play reserve grade. There's a chance you might go on, but I think like, to being honest, you're probably better off getting into a bit of captain coaching. And I took his honesty and got into the captain coach and went down to Bateman's Bay for a couple of years. The first year I didn't take it seriously enough. I needed a good kick in the backside, which they gave me down there. And then we didn't win a game. And then the second year we got through to the finals, and then from there I went to Cairns for 8 years and
I think we played in 6 grand finals and won 4. And we had it was a pretty strong club, brothers. And then I got a lucky break to go to Melbourne, and it was just pure luck. The bloke I was involved with there put my name up to Craig. They flew me down and had a bit of a look, and so it was timing's everything, and you need a bit of luck, but it's probably evident for anyone that doesn't matter where you start or where you think you are. If you work hard, if you can get a lucky break, you got to make the most of it.
I was thinking about working out. It's my birthday soon, but 1st of August, which means our youngest in school year. I was really lucky because I was big, so it was advantageous to a gladiatorial game like rugby league. But for most things in life, being youngest means you've got to create a bit of a work ethic. You've got to do a little bit more than sometimes. Yeah. And I just wondered, is there some clues there? You talk about sort of the family, everybody's paramata, everything was paramata. So you've got a sense of belonging within there, and obviously a purpose as well. Do you think some of that, those early days, is what created that mindset, work ethic about what you do, or is it as a series of correlating success with work ethic over time?
I just think as a kid, it was just how I was brought up.
Right.
Yeah, my parents and men had, other fathers of the team had a lot to do with the teams that just sort of played in when I was younger, and they just pushed us hard and trained us hard, and that was the only way we were going to get any better. So it's sort of just, it was how I was brought up.
Yeah.
And it's how I like to, that's how I bring my kids up. That was what I put. And then I went to Melbourne. It suited me going there because they just worked hard.
Yeah.
And but like the bit that they really ingrained in me was around the detail. Like every bit of detail was important and it didn't get missed. And it was from Craig right down to the players, where the players eventually, they were the ones who drove most of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to marry together a few bits then. So work ethic, family, Parramatta, junior development and detail at Melbourne. Bring that through. So I wanted to ask you about succession. I know at the minute where things are at, in context, it's a short-term thing. But I've always been fascinated in that perpetuity and bringing the youth through. Because when I look back, a lot of the ingredients behind my success was I came through with a cohort of players that were all the same age, love Leeds. You look at Melbourne, it's not had its history, but it's got a great work ethic. Mention Penrith there, well known for having a bunch of people come through. How important is that for sustainability, investing in the youth, and what have you learned in your time in different places?
Yeah, very important. And I don't know the exact numbers, but I remember in 2022 when we played Penrith in the grand final, someone the week leading into it did a story or told me that, Penrith had might have been around 13 blokes that they either gave their debut or come through their system, and we were like 10 or 11.
Wow, right.
And right. The stats, then they, I just can't remember who was talking to me about it, but the same person said that the grand final was over a long period, had been, like you look when Manly had that golden era, they all those guys, Stewarts, Jamie Lyon, Foran, Cherry Evans, they all like come through together, played in that. Melbourne Storm, all those guys come through that system. If you have a look at Penrith now, they've been, this decade. So there's certainly something in the guys being from within and coming from within your club, and, they respect and understand the club more. And I also feel like, like sometimes you can want to try and buy leaders in, like your best leaders are the ones are homegrown and coming through, and the ones have had to learn and develop. And that's certainly something everyone talks about Melbourne Storm's leadership. Well, like they didn't buy leaders in, they had them, at the top level, Kearney, Robbie Kearns, all those guys, and then the younger guys coming through, GI, Billy Slater, Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk, and then the next lot underneath them. So their best leaders coming through, and Penrith are doing exactly the same.
Sure, and it's great, and that's why it's warming to hear about Ash Hanley and Harry Newman, their Federation players come through our system. Let's boil that right down, distill it into our own children. I started this off by talking about dropping my lad off at academy training. If we want to invest energy into people that matter to us, I think there's no more powerful than our own children. You've got two who've played NRL, obviously you've seen their development and growth. I've just got to guess a bit of a personal question really in terms of how you've managed, if at all, to separate the dad from the coach, because for me, it's two very different things, at least until they put on that blue and amber or blue and yellow kit. Dad's always been superior to the rugby player. And I've always found it sometimes to impress upon some of my beliefs and values for them being just a dad and just saying, listen, go and enjoy yourself. How was that journey with Matt and Jake?
Oh, extremely hard. Yes, extremely difficult, but really enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity that I'm grateful for because not a lot of people get to experience it.
Yeah.
You know, it's rare, isn't it? And the people that I probably need to thank the most with it, who made it enjoyable, was the players, because they were actually really good with it. You know, look, it could have been a tricky situation. You know, but they were really good. They were really honest. But I felt like the relationship I'd sort of built with those guys, it made me comfortable that if there was an issue, you know, with anything, they would come to me first and they would talk to me about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, you know, at times I, you know, a bit hard on your own kids compared to other, you know, like other people. And, you know, the players at times would pull me in the line, or, you know, like just had a bit of advice. So, but I really enjoyed it. I didn't like game day when they, you know, so I haven't had the experience of obviously Matt playing under me, but when Jake, I didn't like game day because had the whole game day experience, but then also as a dad thinking, oh, you know, you just, what happens if just there's some negative thoughts around it, and the pressure that he's under, like he had to be a 10 out of a 10 every week for, you know, with media pressure, fan pressure, all that sort of stuff. So, and I remember his debut game, I coached horrible. I was one of the worst weeks of coaching I've ever done. I was at 6s and 7s. It was COVID. He couldn't train with the team. We had to fly him up separate. He could only do the captain's run. And then he went out there and he had a really good debut and, you know, scored on debut and helped the team with it. But the team knew how important it was to me, and they were never ever going to lose that game. Like, and that's what made it real special.
Yeah.
So there's been plenty of highs with it, and you know, Jake got to experience, you know, might only been 10 minutes on the field, but a grand final week. And now Matt's had a couple of games for Paro, you know, over the last month. And, you know, it's good to see because he's one of those guys that's always sort of been, he's a hooker. So he's you know, it's tough position, 19 in the middle of the field. He's small. And, yeah, you know, is he up to it? You know, all that sort of stuff. The whole way through his life, he's always had to sort of play up an age, and every age group and every level that he's gone up, he's got to a stage where he can handle it, and then he dominates it, you know, and then he goes to the next level, and he's shown and he's proven, and he's had to work hard and listen to all that all the way through. And people, you know, would say, oh, you know, it's an advantage for my kids. Well, it is a little bit of an advantage that they get some expertise around footy and coaching, but they also... it can be a disadvantage for them because they've got to live to a whole different set of standards and expectations than anyone else, and like that's what and different pressure and like for me, boys to be able to handle it and kick on. And you know, now Jake's gone to another club and they really like him there and they can see the value in him. But it's hard to juggle. And I don't know if I'd do it again, but I've had that experience, which has been great, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it was tough.
Interesting that you said you don't have to do it again. And I've listened to you. And
unless, you know, you look at Ivan, he's got Nathan, who's an established one of the best players in the game. You know, that's how you could do it. But where they're just trying to forge their career and make it, I think they're better off doing it on their own.
Yes.
And then, you know, if they've had 100 first grade games, well, then I'd be happy to coach them.
Yeah. So you've been very sort of stoic in your approach from what I've heard up to this point. You talked about pressure. There is an external pressure and expectation outside in, I imagine. And I just wondered, like, as a dad, as a coach there, did you have to manage your own expectation in terms of what you expected from them, or was it always going to be organic? Whatever happened?
Yeah, no, a bit of both.
Right.
Yeah, because I did, you know, like, because I knew of the outside expectations, you know, maybe I could have... sometimes, because then my expectations were greater on them as well, then maybe sometimes that pressure might have oozed out of me onto them as well. Like, so I don't know that for sure, but it certainly could have.
Yeah.
But it got to a point, you know, and that's why if I talk about Michelle, where just, you know, I'd try to stay out of their footy, you know, and I'd handed, you know, Jake sort of done all his footy with the assistant coaches, and, you know, like, then the same with Matt. Well, he wasn't playing first grade, so it wasn't too bad, but just sort of left the other coaches to deal with them, and I didn't hardly talk to them. We got to a stage where I hardly talked too much about their footy, just so I wasn't, putting any extra pressure on them, or they had to play with the weight of the expectation on my shoulders too.
Sure. And the old Parramatta badge as well, I think it's a smelting pot, isn't it? When you've been there for so long, the club means so much to you, and I'm reflecting on my own experience in the blue and amber jersey at Leeds Rhinos. And I just wondered, like, for your own development and opportunity now and experience coming over here, outside of that bubble, doing what you're doing really well, the vocational side, what gets you out of bed on a morning, but doing it in a different space, a different club, a different city, a different country. Has that been refreshing somewhat?
Yeah, I love it. It's because it's taken me, like I said, out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's challenged me, like over 11 years you end up learning a lot about the game and what you want to do, and you've got so much you want to implement, but it's only what the players can retain, and it's not actually telling them, actually how much I know. It's what they can actually take in and what they can then go and implement, and trying to put it into a short course like a 9 weeks. You need pre-seasons and pre-seasons to get consistent habits. And I don't even have a pre-season, so I'd really love, to have a pre-season with them. But so this is the challenge: is we dripped just a couple more things into them today. So I'm just making sure, and I've got the 2 assistants making sure that as well they're keeping me on track with not trying to throw too much at them, but just trying to implement small bits and pieces as we go. But that's been challenging. That's been good for my growth, because I never been put in this situation before, and had to deal with blokes where I come in and said, right, clean slate, and just pick the team based on what I'd seen from 1 week. Not, I had, even to his credit, and he played really well for us on the weekend, but James Bentley probably felt like he should have been in the team as soon as he was available, because of the standing he had in the group and what he's done in the game. But I just made my mind up that I was just going to treat everyone the same, and he missed out on the first week. Got in last week and he played really well for us, but he probably felt like he should have been in there. But I was happy just to go, no, I'm sticking to me digs. Yep. And picking the guys that had got the job done, the week before. So that's been a bit of a challenge for me too, not picking teams on expectations and where they stand, and, respect levels that you should have for a guy like that. And I showed him the respect by, giving him the information privately. And it was probably a bit of a kick in the teeth to him, because I never say it's happened to him, but he handled it really well. And it's a good show for the rest of the group. Well, this is how it is. We're all got the same opportunities if we adhere to the standards and expectations that are required as a team. And it's all about what is best for the team and the club, not the individual.
Love it. And listen, there's a line where I'm not thinking about the future. I started off by saying it's about the 6 inches in front of us. I'd love to see where that plane, which has already gained altitude for me, would be with a pre-season under its belt with you. That'd be pretty amazing. I'm looking at some of the values I've written down. Just a few words that I've taken from you in your short time: honest, being really transparent, from off, courageous, talk. That's a part of the vocabulary that you use. Care, work ethic, and you see that from your 4 a.m. starts. What, if you're building a culture, is important to you? Some of those baseline, fertile bits of matter that start to sprout the shoots that you need to create good long-term performance cultures, teams.
Well, all those key words that you mentioned there and we've talked about, it's whatever's best for the whole group and the team versus what's best for the individual. That's what you need. You just need guys you need players in your team that have a bit of an ego. You do need that, because you need them to think that they're invincible, and like when they go out in the field, and that's what makes those really good players, that bit of ego. But you also you need the balance, and you need those players also to be able to, whatever I do has got to be what's best for the bloke beside me, behind me, in front of me, not just what's best for me. And that's the one thing out of the 11 years that's really, if I look at some things I've done well and there's some things I can improve, just making sure that's the thing at the forefront. That is whatever's best for the team and everyone versus what is just best for one.
Just changing tact a little bit, but again, a bit of an interesting question for me, I'm being curious. You've obviously been an anorak, your career coach, rugby league's been your passion for many years in NRL. NRL, from us looking that way, it's just exploded. Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
I've been
a good game.
fortunate to play against like Melbourne Storm and Manly. Had some great World Club Challenge battles. They're probably four of my favourite games. And even I've been starstruck at some of the lineups I've played against. But the game is consistent, right? We're playing the same game. The context is different. So we're playing it over in the UK. We've got our challenges as we're over here. Thriving in the NRL. What is it, from your limited time here, do you think that we might be able to focus on to emulate and get some of the outcomes that they're getting over in Australia?
I think the development and the pathways in Australia, and because it's it's one of their main sports, the NRL. Yeah. So like the more money and opportunity gets tipped into the NRL, so you can afford to have the best people running those programs, put more funding into it, because the money's there for it. But I think the development and at youth level and what clubs do now is promoting a better quality of game, providing more players. Now that's providing more teams, and the competition has never been any more even. And on their day, anyone can sort of win, and that's what the fans want. And they just want their team to be a chance of being able to win every week. Then that generates more money to put back in at the bottom. So and I don't know the system over here real well, so it's not a knock on that. But I just think that's what Australia do really well, and eventually. But the Super League is not the main sport over here, so that's where it becomes can be a financial burden.
Yeah, true. Difficult, and I guess it's only on that lived experience that you can reflect upon rugby league over here. I mean, we only measure it, I guess, by internationals. Australia have been obviously superior for a lot of years. Interestingly, though, obviously World Club Challenge, Penrith are a great side. St Helens and Wigan have both come up with results against them, and I know it's a one-off package. I think, if I understand it right, would you have been at Melbourne when we played them back in... I don't know if you came over in 08. Did you come over for that game?
I can't remember what year. I come over for a game. I just don't know what year it was. Was it 08?
Might have been. I think
it was windy and wet. It was horrible.
That was it. That was it.
I hated every minute of it.
So, obviously, that was probably when people ask me what was my favourite game, it would be that one.
Yeah, right.
Cooper Cronk, Billy Slater, Greg Inglis, Cameron Smith.
Some good players.
Some good lads, and you're like going, what are we doing here from Gipton and Bramley? We're going to compete against these. Went on, I had a battle. It was like hell, as you said. All the cones for the warm-up are blown away. Had some great players, Keith Senior, Brent Webb, Ali Lau-TT, those boys. Yeah. It was brilliant. But the perception, I suppose, of Super League over here, when you're in the NRL, do you see much potential in it? Do people over there talk about what a more holistic international curriculum would look like?
Well, it's got bigger, like people actually talking about Super League in Australia and, about results and looking into it, and players, I reckon, are a bit more open to coming over and playing over here, whereas, maybe in the past they weren't.
Yeah.
And then, it's been a good eye-opener for me too, to get over here. And, like, with all respect, and I say it, it's a better competition than I thought.
Right.
Yeah, and like in our club at Leeds is very professionally run. Like there's bits and pieces I'd like to tidy here and there, but overall it's pretty good. Yeah, and like in the coaching, the level of coaches are good, and like the assistants, the performance staff, the players' intake, and what they know about the game is pretty good. So like it's a real good starting point.
And what about the fans? Obviously, Australians usually talk about the atmosphere that fans create. Leeds,
yeah,
good.
It's different. Yeah,
have you got the Leeds Rhinos fraternity putting their arm around you, giving you a cuddle and kisses and all sorts?
Well, let's say like when I got off the plane and I went out to Warrington,
right?
And like when you're sitting in there, I knew that was coming, but it was just until you're actually sitting there. I sat there for the first half, but it was just different. Usually in a box and you can't hear anything, you don't feel the atmosphere, you don't feel sometimes. You feel removed from the game. You just feel like watching it on TV, sometimes in Sydney when you're that far away and, like there's no atmosphere, but like even the game the other night, we're only 4 or 5 rows off the sideline, and it wasn't a massive crowd, but you just feel more part of it. Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. It's a different way of looking at it for me, and I haven't minded it at all.
Brilliant, brilliant. Last couple of questions there. I'd like to know a little bit about yourself, Brad Arthur. Certainly in the time that I don't imagine you allow yourself much of to maybe relax, chill out, do something that you enjoy. I wonder, do you read much? And if you do...
No, you know what? I need to. Everyone's encouraged me, and I need to read more.
Yep.
I don't have the patience to sit there and just sit still for that long and do it. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, I noticed you had your headphones in this morning. What do you listen to?
Well, I just got off the phone because that's my time now at the moment where I can talk to the kids and
right
and Michelle. So yeah, been just doing all my phone calls. Yeah,
still working while he's working. Love it, love it. And I've always liked fishing. A lot of people look down the glasses at this. I love fishing. It's my favourite pastime. I bet I haven't been for 18 months though. I've got to make that time. What do you enjoy doing, if anything, in your spare time? Or you just grafter?
Oh, just like, you know, my life was I'd go to work, I'd come home and I'd work, or I'd have time with my family, or I'd go and watch the boys play, you know, watch them play footy, or my daughter play netball, and that was about it. Like, and you know, I had a holiday house up the coast, and I used to enjoy going up there, and because that was where I'd relax a little bit. But outside of that, nothing else. Yeah, but I'm happy with that. That's me. I'm happy doing that.
Brilliant. You've said that a few on some of the post-match press conferences. I went and had a beer with lads. I was thinking about Kev Sinfield's favourite film, Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne. At the end, near the end of the film, when he sat on the rooftop with his mates, just having a beer with his mates, he done. And that moment with people, the fruits of your labour, I think is where we get the most satisfaction and gratification. But it's only been 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. There's a lot more.
A lot to do, yeah.
Yeah, a lot to do, a lot to learn.
Yeah.
But that's a great insight into the Leeds Rhinos head coach, Brad Arthur. I look forward to spending a bit more time with you, seeing where this season goes and who knows, maybe beyond. Thank you very much for joining us again in Box 2. Look forward to the next one.